Brett Brown has undoubtedly been the steadiest face of the 76ers franchise the past 5 seasons. As he gets ready to head into his 6th, his team is surrounded by more talent, more hype, and more attention than ever before.
You cannot connect the dots of culture and impatience. It doesn't work. Culture cannot exist with impatience.
Coming up, we've got a preseason sit-down with the head coach himself. From Markelle Fultz.
It's clear he feels good about himself. I think born out of he's put in the work.
To his own renowned pregame running routine.
To get out and have fresh air interests me a lot. It clears my head. As I get older, I feel like I need it even more.
We cover some good ground, focusing on a lot of the cultural elements that have helped trigger the Sixers turnaround. Brett Brown on this episode of the BroadCast. Yes. Very excited to have an interview with Brett Brown on this episode of the podcast. Before we get to that, reminders, per usual, about our feed. If you are not yet a subscriber, you can head to, of course, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Tune in any of your other favorite podcatching platforms. Type in Sixers Podcast Network, and that will take you to our spots. It is amazing that we are, really, all things considered, it is pretty amazing that we are talking about Brett Brown being on the cusp of his 6th season with the 76ers. Everyone knew that when Brown was hired back in August of 2013, there was a view for the long game that was involved. But for everything that Brown has battled and endured, here he is, I think, 100% totally deserving of the opportunity that's in front of him, which is to have the legit chance to coach the 76ers to not just one, but perhaps multiple, in a perfect world, championship runs. No doubt about it, he's earned it. And there has been so much more than just X's and O's that have gone into the last 5 seasons for Brett Brown. And those are going to be some of the things that you'll hear us talk about over the course of this conversation, which we had the chance to record right after the Sixers' preseason opener against Melbourne United. Here it is. We have the great privilege and fortune of being able to talk about a preseason game being in the books. 76ers' first game was against Melbourne United. What were some of your general takeaways from exhibition game number 1?
Just from the big picture, personally, to play against a team that I used to coach with, and to have several of their coaching staff and a few of their players be coaches that I've coached, whether it's at the London Olympic Games or junior basketball when they were 15 years old. They reminded me of when I took them out to dinner the night before, the connection that I have had personally with the Australian basketball fraternity, the city of Melbourne, the fact that we have Ben Simmons, our starting point guard, Australian, Jonah Bolden, somebody that we drafted and is now in the program, Australian, and you just can't make that stuff up. And so that in itself was a unique environment, stuff that is incredibly rare. That opportunity was very rare. To then go play your first game and watch our new team, play, and watch Markelle play, and watch Mike Muscala come in, say, and play in front of our fans against a team that I used to coach. It was a good night, a good start to what is always a long season. But I would have left feeling like our defense really has a chance, I think, to be elite. And I get really excited watching Markelle Fultz play.
Follow up on some of that stuff in a bit. But it's interesting because, especially now, with changes that were made a couple years ago, preseason schedules trimmed down to 4 games where you guys actually have more practice sessions than you do actual games. So when you guys make evaluations on anything pertaining to the team, how does weight get distributed to what you're seeing in practice versus what you might see in a glimpse in a game?
I have said publicly, and I'll say it now again, that the gym is going to speak to me. I come into the season certainly with preconceived ideas.
And you're talking about a practice gym?
Yeah, I am. I think the gym is going to speak to me in practice, and you're going to feel things, you're going to see things. And you have to come into it with a mind, I think, where you take your preconceived ideas, where I'm going to grow him, I'm going to play him, I think these two guys can coexist well, I can run this play for, whomever, those types of summer thoughts. And then the gym speaks to the coach and the coaching staff. And always somebody stands out, somebody disappoints, something doesn't feel right that you thought was going to feel right over the summer. And so the gym speaks to me. And by and large, I like to reward what I see and deviate from my preconceived ideas. That's competition. Competition needs to be rewarded. Or to me, it's when stuff starts to unravel. And so the environment that we have to be able to do that is small. There aren't many opportunities in the NBA life where you can have multiple practices or multiple, preseason games and then deliver a team to opening night against the Celtics. You got to have some, quick decisions and justification of why you're doing stuff in my mind, where ultimately I want to get to a as much as I can, a rhythm to how I sub this team, play this team, call plays for this team, etc. But practice is the starting point for the base of those decisions.
There's a lot that we could talk about in respect to Markelle Fultz, but in the limited time we have, you said something going into that first game against Melbourne, and a really elaborate answer about the decision to start him and bring J.J. Redick off the bench. And it sounded like, as much as anything, we know what he can do offensively, but the defensive part of what you saw from Markelle, that was something that stuck out in your mind. Can you give us some more details on what you observed at the end of last year with him defensively, and then what he's shown up to this point that made you feel like that was the appropriate decision to make?
I first think that he is a willing defender. It's not pulling teeth. The NBA defense is incredibly different than anything he experienced in college or at DeMatha or in high school. And so it starts with, are you a willing participant? Are you a willing defensive player? Will you let me coach you defensively? And he will, and yes he can, and yes he does. And you take that mentality and then you drape his body and his length, his wingspan, and his height into that formula, and I think he's got a chance to be so much better than others might have thought pre-draft. There was no more of a sort of a water bug type, elusive, open court, get wherever he wants to go, big wiggle, big game, type of player. And I'm seeing something that can be transferred defensively as much as all those other notions that people had, when they decided he was going to be the first player chosen in the NBA draft, and that's what I like the most, his mentality. You combine that with his body, and he knows that's where I see the world, that's where our bread is buttered from a defensive perspective, and you throw that into a mix in the length with Joel and Ben Simmons and Cove and Dario as an example, that group that I started. That's a long team. You start measuring fingertip to fingertip with their wingspans and stretching them out. I think somebody said it got to, almost 35 feet. That's a lot of length. And that part of the game, that part of him excites me.
Was there any point last year when you wondered, questioned if he, perhaps just from a mental and confidence standpoint, would be able to get back to what seems like a really good and healthy place that he's in right now?
I think we'd all be lying if we, didn't wonder, where will this end up? I have always felt like he was going to end up being fine. How soon, I didn't know. And the work that he put in this summer and the man hours that he put in and 150,000 shots, they say, he shot this summer, and sort of that deliberate practice all day, every day from June, July, and August. It's clear he feels good about himself. I think born out of, he's invested time. He's put in the work. And for him to come back and do some of the things that I've seen this year, if anything, shows how confident he is. He really is not shying away from anything, not shots, not a foul shot, not a free throw line, not anything. And I think that mindset that I see excites me as much as, him making some free throws or making some pull-up jump shots. I like his mindset because he's not backing down from any of these environments.
Do you think having fun, which it seems like he's doing, and trusting the network of people around him, are those two factors, from what you've seen over the course of your career, are they as big as anything to unlocking what someone might have within himself?
I think it is that for all of us. I don't care how old you are. And anytime you can come into a system and a program and a family where you feel respected, you feel that you're a part of something that's, a little bit bigger than you, that has clear-cut rules. It's not, anything that can be sort of taken for granted. It's to be respected, the environment, the role, protected. That is the environment that we've tried to create since we've all been together. And I think that Markelle coming in at this stage of all of us after 6 years, he's coming into a very, I think, a competitive, caring environment that I think can assist him as he moves through the NBA at a very young age.
This is going to sound really, really lazy, but I've been racking my brain. We've had about a week and a half worth of media sessions, and I feel like there's been so much that's been asked about Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and what's next for them. Are there things that, like, we as the media aren't asking that you're viewing as really important things to Joel and Ben that you think might be under the radar that are important and critical to the next steps that they're taking? What are some of those things in your mind?
I mean, the main thing is the growth of those few that you've mentioned to me as leaders. And, I can get into coach speak and talk to you about, putting them in more pick and rolls. I can get into defensive coach speak where we can talk about how well we switch or keeping Joel at the rim. I can do that, and it's all true. But what immediately comes to my mind is the notion of growing leaders. And everybody leads in different ways. Continuing to remind them that this is their city, this is their program. And help me help you. Help me help you. Down deep, I know that everybody wants to be coached, everybody wants discipline, everybody wants some level of law and order. And to build a fence around our program in a good way and let them lead from those sort of parameters and embrace the city and embrace the new guys coming into the team and find ways to, attract free agents and have it be a desirable destination. It's all there. We got everything. An unbelievable city, an incredible practice facility, a growing program, a clear-cut way how we want to play the sport, offensive, defensive style of play. I think that the culture that we're building is something that is attractive and real. And all those types of things are the things that interest me the most when you talk about the growth and development of those two. Is it something that the media, I don't know how you couched your question, is it something that they speak about or, haven't really discussed maybe as much as I think they could? I don't really care. I think that it is something for me that interests me maybe more than anything.
All these foundational elements of a sustained, successful program, something that you've had a hand in over the parts of the last 6 years. So there probably was no one better to steward this team during the off-season months than yourself. I don't know if relief is the right word, but are you very much eager to be just focused back on coaching at this point, that is really your day-to-day at this stage of the season?
You can use relief.
Is relief okay? So are you relieved to just get back to coaching?
It's one of the words that's appropriate. Yeah. I wanted nothing to do with the continuation of a general manager role or responsibilities, because I know that for me, I can't do both. I do not want to have that type of bandwidth or multitasking. I want to coach basketball. And to look back, the summer was very unusual. It completely changed the rhythm beat of a coach's mentality and normal calendar lifestyle with your family, and it changed. It was different for me this summer, more so than any, I think, coaching year I've ever had. And so to look in the rearview mirror now and end up where we have ended up with Elton Brand as that general manager, and the growth of Alex Rucker, and the empowerment in the office of Ned Cohen, and pivoting Mark Eversley out into more of a role that I think he's going to be amazing at, with trying to help us identify and obviously still draft and all those things, but dig into how we build in our program and free agents and all that stuff, and connecting with the team that we have now on the court. Those four I'm fans of, and to end up as we've ended up, to drive into this office and see those people running our organization, and to have the support of owners and Josh and Blitz, Josh Harris and David Blitzer, we're in a good place. We're in a really good place with people that are competent and care and understand the history of what we've all been through and the culture that we're trying to continue to grow. I'm thrilled we've ended up where we've ended up. And as far as my role in it, you just try to help the team and help the organization in that 3-month window, and I hope that I did that.
People might say, well, this is a really easy question for the digital reporter who's employed by the 76ers to ask, but you just mentioned the patience factor of ownership, and that's not something, you look at any professional sport and you really don't see that a lot. How much do you think that just you having time, how much more has that allowed you and this organization to do and accomplish?
I mean, you cannot connect the dots of culture and impatience. It doesn't work. Culture cannot exist with impatience, especially when you dismantle a program and try to build it back up as we have. And there is a routine that we all seek. Everybody wants the comfort of a routine. A familiarity doesn't mean there's complacency. And so to try to grow habits and a comfort level of how we work and where do I park and there's my locker and here's the style of play and here's some of the familiarities with the plays that we're running and corporate knowledge and continuation, like that matters. And so you don't just click your heels and like, oh, let's we have a culture in a year. It takes time. And any team that I've ever studied or been a part of that's won championships has that. That's the only reason I do my job, is we want to win a championship and bring a championship here to the city of Philadelphia. And it can't happen, in my estimation, my opinion, unless you have a base of culture. And to Josh Harris and David Blitz's credit, we've been quite linear on how we've tried to grow this and how we see the world, how we sign contracts and have thoughtfully tried to build the team. The draft is always a challenge. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't. And I just think that there's a very disciplined approach on how we tried to grow it. And it's probably as grateful an area that we're talking about for me, that our owners have stayed focused on the discipline you have to have if you really want to end up at some point with a championship.
I consider myself pretty lucky because I get some glimpses and insights into the different cultural touch points that you guys have built. And one thing is just the messaging around the training complex of the Philly hard, Philly edge, Philly real. Can you tell us where the inspiration for that messaging came from? Was it based on, if you think of certain examples of players who had passed through this team over the course of its history, where did that all come from?
I mean, they allowed me to do this. And so these are my words. And it's just words that I use all the time. It's how I speak to my staff, to the players, to the media. And again, to Josh and David Blitz's credit, they allowed me to signage up the building and really give thought to how we message the building and how I speak to the team can be displayed in the building. And if you came into a film session, it features on all of our films. And in the past, and we will continue to do this year, I will go to Joel as an example. What's Philly hard mean to you? Hey Ben, what's Philly edge mean to you? Markelle, what's Philly real? Like, what's authentic? What's real to you? And I think that those words mirror the city. Like, I want to play to the spirit of the city. Our style of playing, how I try to act, as the head coach and speak to my team, I hope those 3 words mean something. If you walked around our building, you would see, Allen Iverson stepping over somebody on a hard. You got Charles Barkley, into the whole edge. There's a picture of him with a rebound. You can see there's an edge to, his style of playing and who he is. And then there's like this authenticity, a real with Julius Erving, walking down, I think it's Broad Street, and looking like Doc only could look like. And, the authenticity, and we could have chose that word, but we went real. I could have chose attitude. We could have gone to some other words, but we went Philly hard, Philly edge, and Philly real. And that's how I see our program. That's how I see the city. You know, I think it replicates the characteristics of the city of Philadelphia.
Continuing along the cultural touchpoint lines, the day that we're recording this, you have Family Day, so we see the families of everyone coming in through here. I think there's hay, well, there's at least hay. I don't know if there's hay rides, but there's moon bounces, there's catering spreads set up. To bring everyone together like that before the season starts, how does that help the vibe around a team?
I mean, there are 6 things that we've started since we've all been together, and this is one of them. You mentioned coach the coaches. You know, that's one of 6. Here's the second of 6 things that, as I said at the beginning, can live through the ages. It doesn't matter who the GM is, who the coach is. They're things that can live through the ages. That's how you form a culture. When there's a rhythm to a calendar, there's annual events that you just never let go of, and you just keep doing them and doing them better, and all of a sudden it's ingrained in how you think and how you act and how you welcome, in this case, families. And this is our 5th annual Family Day, and girlfriends, wives, children, moms and dads, friends are welcome to the facility on a day, a special day, a single day. And we're lucky to have a fantastic day and to be able to look out across the river and see the skyline of the city of Philadelphia and have this amazing practice facility, you know, behind it, and to look out there and see several hundred people, you know, and enjoying the day and interacting with each other and meeting people. That matters to us. And so the Family Day is an annual event that we started a while ago, and it's continued to grow. And we're excited to go down in about 20 minutes and get into it.
A couple mixed bag things before we wrap up. Your car was here a lot during the summer. You had a lot to do. Can we talk about your car? Can you describe to the people the car you drive? I envision Brett Brown going through the Australian outback terrain.
So I am so lucky that we have a relationship with a fantastic Jeep dealership. And so every 6 months, you know, I have the opportunity to sort of design a car. And the guy that helps me do it, my good friend Dave, he's got a youthful approach to like how he likes to build things. And oftentimes I've got to tame him down and remind him that I'm 57, I'm the head coach, big tires and stuff that blinks and, you know, stuff that's a little bit out there isn't my style. And so somewhere the design of my car, you know, is something that I love. It is a Jeep that I've driven Jeeps for 25 years, and this actually happens to be one of my favorite. I had a chance this year to take it deep into the woods of Maine. It was me, my dog, and a fishing rod, and off we went. This is true. My wife deserves a lot of credit for allowing me just to take off for a few days, but the Jeep is my preferred car. It has been for 25 plus years, and I'm lucky to work with a tremendous Jeep dealership to help me craft these types of vehicles over the years.
Your pregame runs, how does that ritual, where does that bring you? What are some of the music artists you listen to? Where does that take you, your pregame runs?
I mean, I have run repetitively for probably 18 years, like as a habit, you know, and just to get out and have fresh air interests me a lot. It clears my head. I think better. I feel like you're not worth less when you start getting sort of out of shape a little bit. And, you know, as I get older, I feel like I need it even more. And weather does not intimidate me. We've run in snow and rain and you know, clouds and sun. I need fresh air. I really love fresh air. And it's been a routine of mine for a long time. And it's just part of my rhythm to my day and my own personal habits that I try to stick to. And you do feel at times you miss it for whatever reason, and you don't feel as good as you used to when you can knock out a good run.
I have a more vested interest in this next question as a relatively recently minted father. But how do you keep balance What would you say to people about keeping balance? It seems like that's something that you have. I'm sure it's harder at times than you make it look, but that seems like something you've been able to achieve.
I mean, for me, it's like I live a very basic life. I am either here in the gym with my team or I'm with my children and my family. And it's how I like to live. It's where I feel like I can be most productive and, fulfill the things that I like doing the most out of life. And it's almost that simple. I'm lucky that I have a little wannabe Philly street baller point guard 14, which keeps me always interested in still coaching basketball. I got 2 beautiful daughters. I have a wife, Anna, that I've been with for, since she was 20 years old. And so I've been married or with her for, almost 28 years. And I met her traveling on the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, and we've been with each other for a long time. She really runs everything. I enjoy the ride, but she is the sort of brains behind a lot of like the domestic stuff, and allows me to come in here and coach my team, our team, and that's my world. It's a simple world, but it works for me.
Lastly, to bring it all full circle, you've built all this stuff, the cultural aspects, the team is having success. So now with increased scrutiny, attention, expectations, I mean, you've lived through a franchise that's won multiple titles. How do you preserve that?
Ask that question differently.
So you've been through the last couple of years, you have built all of this up, the cultural elements, the team is now having success. It seems like everything is in a good place. With increased scrutiny on the team, attention, people whose individual prominence might be rising, how do you preserve the goodness that you and this team have created and making sure that that carries through as you guys try to reach your goal of a title?
I mean, my answer is quick, and it's something that I think entirely that the discipline of how we do kind of everything needs to always grow. It needs to always have a credible solidarity. It needs to be consistent. Oftentimes as success comes in, either from a team or individuals, stuff has a tendency maybe to get a little bit loose. Maybe standards aren't as tight. I think the whole opposite. I think now is the time that we just keep things nice and tight and real and, accountable. And down deep, I know that that's what our players need and want, and so my mindset as the coach of the team, as we start winning games and more expectations, is I want to make sure that we keep a fence around our program and the discipline within the program of how we treat people, how we play offense and defense and hire and contracts and retain the whole thing, where there is a very sort of not negotiable, expected fairness and respectful way we care for people. And we get, at the end of the day, you got to win games, but it's more to that for me in regards to the pitfalls or some of the areas that you got to be aware of as our program grows in stature, and the individuals within our program, attain more notoriety and success, and I will help them. But it needs to come with a discipline amongst all of us within, I think, what's growing to be a special program.
Who better than Brett Brown himself to give insight on that special feeling that is building around the Sixers, and so awesome that he has had the chance to see this through. Brown going into this year, the 4th longest tenured head coach in the NBA, and that says something, not just about his persistence, but as he said as well, the patience of Sixers ownership to give him a chance to build upon and carry out his vision. Huge thanks to Brett for taking more than just a couple minutes to talk. Thank you as always for listening. Be on the lookout in your feeds in the coming days. We're going to have a couple episodes, at least that's the plan, to bring to you from China. Big trip for the 76ers and 2 games against a really intriguing Dallas Mavericks team in Shanghai and then in Shenzhen on Friday and Monday respectively. So we'll talk to you from half a world away in the South Pacific next time here on the BroadCast. See you.